Aloha, and welcome to Cooper Union. What's happening with human rights around the world? It's great to be here today with guests from all around the planet, Morocco, Philippines, New York City, and Hawaii as well. Today, we'll be looking at the 10th Economic and Social Council Youth Forum. This was the 10th Youth Forum, and we're looking at a decade of action and building a resilient recovery. I'm very excited to have this intergenerational dialogue on the UN commitment to meaningful youth engagement and the promise of the UN 75th Declaration. Thank you so much for joining us, and would like to start with our guest from Morocco. What has inspired you to be involved?
I would like first to thank you for this amazing invitation. I'd like to thank Hawaii TV and our amazing host for this invitation. Actually, since my childhood, I was very interested by the youth work, and especially the participation of the youth and the local level. So that was my first step into the NGOs and the youth work. And this year was an amazing opportunity for us as young leaders to participate in the ECOSOC Youth Forum. Even it was a full online option, but it was open to everyone. It was an amazing also opportunity for us to talk and to share our ideas with the different decision makers around the world. Actually, here in Morocco, we are working on the local youth council. I'm very interested by that working because we believe here that real change always comes from the local level.
Thank you so much, Nidal. Regine, joining us from the Philippines. Thank you so much.
Hello, Mabuhay. Do I get the same question? So what inspired me, right? I think it has a lot to do with my, I guess, my heritage, my family background. I come from families of multicultures and different religions. So I grew up in different languages, different traditions. And so I've always been conscious of like our diversity and inclusion. And so I got into peace building work early. And I think like everything we do with sustainable development goals, ultimately, like we try to build a world that's inclusive of different kinds of people, right? So I think like that's somehow been really at the center of my passion and like my driving force, like for everyone to be able to share space with different kinds of people, and that we get to learn from each other too.
Absolutely. I think learning from each other is probably one of the most important aspects that we gain by joining at the global level. And Saphira.
Thank you so much. I also had the experience of working with young people at the grassroots level in the community building processes of the Baha'i community, which really aims to empower local populations and with a particular focus on young people to make a meaningful contribution to the well-being of their society. And so through that experience, it really demonstrated to me the ways in which when young people are given that opportunity, the contribution that they can make is very striking. And so part of what really inspires me to engage at the international level is this idea that every generation of young people has a distinct contribution to make to the world, according to the particular opportunities and challenges of this particular historical moment. And around the world, we see these patterns of paternalistic attitudes and narrowing of civic space, young people often being denied a role in shaping their societies. And for me, it's not just about feeding young voices into old systems, but it's about completely transforming the ways in which society is organized and to eventually create a global civilization that's based on these principles of justice, equality, equal prosperity. And I really feel that young people will play a very significant role in advancing that for everyone.
Thank you so much. And that's absolutely what we need to do. And I agree with you that every generation actually gets to shape society depending on global forces. And I really do see the interconnectivity that a lot of previous decades have talked about, but I see it actually coming into place. Naima is here with us in Hawaii. Naima, what inspired you to be involved?
Aloha. It's wonderful to be here with you all. So I'm a first-year law student at the University of Hawaii, and I'm currently studying international environmental law, especially as it relates to the South Pacific region. And I was asked to attend the youth forum as a delegate by the Baha'i international community, and was very excited to be there. It was my first time. And as someone who also works with youth and junior youth at the grassroots level, it was wonderful to see the role that youth are taking on in response to the changing environment. I work also with the Institute for Climate and Peace, which is a nonprofit organization based here in Hawaii, which seeks to advance peaceful, climate resilient futures for different communities here in the South Pacific, and serve as a co-founder for an organization, a project called Kanu Offset, which seeks to offset one's carbon footprint and increase food security here in Hawaii through the planting of food trees on local farmland. So it's these are projects that are very near and dear to my heart. So my reasons for attending law school and for attending this youth forum were really a result of my family's experience as citizens of Tuvalu, which is located midway between Hawaii and Australia, and the Marshall Islands. So they have been immediately impacted by climate change and rising sea levels. And many Tuvaluans and other Pacific Islanders have already had to leave their homelands and have scattered across the South Pacific. So it was great to be in that space and listening to some of the conversations that were being held between different youth around the world in response to these changes.
I was actually in Tuvalu when they hosted the Pacific Island Forum just a couple of years, and we always assist Ambassador Samuelu of Tuvalu on the General Assembly and other matters. So it's great to connect. And Nidal, coming back to you, I really appreciated how you shared and gave us a glimpse of what it was like to be in the global body last week. Can you tell us what was a personal and professional highlight of the 10th UN ECOSOC Youth Forum?
Thank you for this question. Actually, it was not my first time to attend the ECOSOC Youth Forum, but as I did already mention, that this year was very special because this year we are celebrating the 10 years anniversary of the ECOSOC Youth Forum, and also we are all the world we are facing difficult moments actually with the pandemic of Corona. Actually, it's my second time. The first time it was 2 years ago when we created the World Urban Youth Council network during the ECOSOC Youth Forum. It was actually an amazing opportunity to give to all the young leaders. That's why from this channel, I would like to request to all the youth around the world, they need to participate in such an event because there we are sharing our opinion, we are sharing our views, we are given solutions for some problems. It's so amazing to be there, and it's such an honor for me as a Moroccan, as a young leader, also Moroccan, to participate in such an event like ECOSOC Youth Forum.
Thank you, Regine. Any personal, professional highlight of the Youth Forum?
Sure. So personally and also professionally, I follow up on a lot of regional processes since I represent the Asian Youth Council, Committee for ASEAN Youth to UN processes. And so it was really nice to get together with my friends from around the region, Asia Pacific, like in every webinar, because it's been a while. Like usually I'm quite used to like seeing young people at the UN, including Saphira, at least once or twice a year, right? With ECOSOC Forum, HLPF, but like for the past nearly 1.5 years, we haven't been able to travel. So like these, I think it was really formatted well, like ECOSOC Forum, that it enabled interactions. There were so many side events, and then there was even a online networking reception. So personally, it was good to see young advocates and my friends to come together despite being online. And it was also an opportunity for us to launch one of our projects, which is Asia TV. And we work closely with the youth councils on that. And so it's an online channel where we aim to continue these online conversations in our region in a sustainable way. so that like there's just this one-stop place where young people can continue to create videos and maybe podcasts and sustain the conversations that came out of the forum.
Thank you so much. Saphira.
Yeah, so a highlight for me this year was definitely the virtual nature of the platform. And usually when the Youth ECOSOC Forum happens in New York in person, it's between about 500 to 1,000 young people who come in person and, engage. There's a formal invitation process that happens, and you need to be invited to attend. But this year, and it was significant that it was the 10th anniversary, having about 20,000 young people engaging online and also engaging with high level. It was government officials, youth ministers, the Secretary General of the United Nations. So I think this year the breadth of participants and also the high rank of those who participated was quite significant. But also I think it's an area where young people really thrive in terms of digital technology and being able to connect and interact with one another online. And I think it's an area that the forum will have to continue learning about, how to make that meaningful. And the other thing that really stood out to me this year is that, social change is a really long process. And I think as young people, we can feel, you see the injustices so clearly, and everything from the impact that COVID has had on young people around the world to climate change, to, the economic systems that young people are trying to navigate with their access to education and then moving into careers. But this long process of seeing young people really commit to something that they believe in and working through it with a lot of humility and detachment in a way, like openness to learn from others, openness to have this intergenerational dialogue, but also, as Regine was saying, this ability to accompany one another, to support one another, to build these networks and really help this long-term commitment blossom and start to develop fruit of a lot of the energy and the talent that young people have to offer, and see that develop over time is really exciting.
And back to Hawaii. Naima.
Yeah, so I think that the highlight for me was definitely the creativity with which the youth are leading their communities and creating social change and sparking meaningful conversations. I enjoyed attending a panel which discussed ways in which art could be used as participatory element in resolving climate justice issues. And so they were talking about how society could better understand and advocate for climate justice by looking at the intersection of art and technology. So these young people are creating these digital or visual tools to benefit the community as a whole. And what happens then is there's this reciprocity and this conversation that takes place between the community and those creating those tools and spaces. So I found it really exciting to learn more about how artists can help us see climate data and understand climate change through a new lens. So I think this zeal for implementing change at the local level that we see demonstrated by youth around the world is very resonant with what's happening here in Hawaii, where teams of youth are reimagining what climate action looks like, and are creating collaborative opportunities to advance climate justice on island. It was Kavika Pigram, a high school junior from Waipahu, who organized the Hawaii Youth Climate Strike of several hundred students here in 2019, calling for unity and environmental justice and accountability. So increasingly, it's the youth of Hawaii who are facilitating and leading these movements with hope and optimism and this amazing, profound sense of justice. So I'm excited to, have more conversations here with youth and junior youth about how their communities can help support them in that.
Great point. And when we look at the different models that exist at the global level, I know that really at certain points, certain countries are really good. Some countries have youth representation in UN activities. Which ones do you think are most inclusive and in the way that they actually integrate, but also give independence to their youth representative? What were some of the best case examples? I know Scandinavia had a youth minister, also a health minister who was only in the 20s in the past. What are some of the examples that you saw at Youth Forum or that you see in your daily examples of engaging at the UN? Saphira, if you wanted to start and then open it to anyone else.
Changing the order around. Yeah, I was going to echo some of the framing that you mentioned, Joshua, actually about the Nordic countries. And there were a number of youth delegates where youth ministers came to, share their advancement and progress around the implementation of the 2030 agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals, in relation to the youth-focused SDGs, and having youth delegates being able to speak and take up some of that time. But I actually also feel like there is more of a growing movement where there is a youth delegates program at the United Nations, and more countries are trying to find opportunities for young people to engage, to open up national youth councils. And I think in addition to what countries and member states are doing on this particular issue, there's also a movement around civil society organizations trying to open up opportunities for young people to engage and make these interventions. So the major group on children and youth, which Regine and Nidal can speak a little bit more to, has been very thoughtful about reaching out to youth networks and youth-led organizations to find opportunities for young people to contribute at the United Nations, and also develop these relationships with member states at the international level to open up some of these opportunities.
Nidal, was there a country that you feel is doing really well at integrating but also providing independence?
Yeah, actually, we are trying our best here. And as I am a young leader from Morocco, I'm also from Africa. So it's very important now to talk about the African participation in such an event. Actually, we have a very low percentage of African youth that they participate in such an event. That's why it's our mission now as young leaders to improve that percentage and help that category of youth to participate and to get involved in such an event, an international event. It's our mission. And also people from also the youth from Africa, I have a message to them. I want to address to them that they should not listen to people that they are telling them you are too young. The people that they are telling you that you are too young are the same people that they will tell you later that you are too old. So that's why it's very important now to improve more participation, and especially from the African countries, because we have a very big percentage of youth in our countries here.
Regine.
Yes, if I may, I'd really like to speak to the experience of the Global South, because, I think it deserves acknowledgement of our shared histories, to a certain extent, on why we're even maybe somehow behind when it comes to participation, not only of youth, but civil society. So we have to give credit to those who really try and who are transforming in their own ways despite our histories of colonization and so on and so forth. So here in the Asia Pacific, we have a culture of having youth councils, like Saphira mentioned, which are institutionalized youth mechanisms for participation. And of course, there are pros and cons. Like many of them are granted spaces in decision making, but at the same time, they're also very susceptible to tokenism, right? And being agents of governments versus of the youth voice. So that's what we try to balance. And through these multilateral UN spaces, like Major Group for Children and Youth and Friends for Leadership, and so on and so forth, we're able to, when youth councils join these, we're able to converse with our fellow young people who are from the grassroots, and we exchange experiences. And I think it's very valuable, that we learn not only from each other as youth advocates, but also break the silos of young people who are already there, like young politicians, young bureaucrats, young decision makers, with young people in the grassroots, so that in our own generation, we're able to bridge the gaps of those who are on top and those who are at the bottom. So that's what we're trying to do in our region.
Excellent points. Naima.
Yeah, I don't know that I can point to one specific country, but I know that there are many communities in the South Pacific, from Niue to Tuvalu, where there have been initiatives led by youth who have expressed their solidarity with the likes of Greta and the Fridays for Future movement, wanting to see greater commitments on climate action by countries. And so as climate change impacts intensify over time, and more children are born into this era facing increasingly worsening impacts, it's exciting to see that the youth are leading these conversations that elevate the voices of young people and give them a say in their future and the future of the Pacific and the world. So I would say there are a lot of initiatives that are taking place, and there's a lot of tools and support that are being lended to these voices.
And it is exciting. The Pacific has led the way. I know just recently at the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, there was the case brought from youth against the corporate polluting countries and challenging that. So it's exciting to see there was 2 Pacific Islanders as part of that coalition. And we definitely need to look at that. And the idea behind the question was because when we look at it, you know, if we can see 1 or 2 countries that are doing it right, then we can demand our countries do the same. And in the US, it's a pretty weak system where, you know, it's the UNA, and I'm on the National Council, and they have a cool role, but they're not officially integrated. And I know some countries just do it better, and we can aim towards that. And sometimes, in many ways, Oceania countries and Global South are actually involving the youth in the decision making because they have to be true, genuine partners. So I really appreciate all your perspectives on that. In our final round, what are you excited about next to be engaged with in advocacy at home or the global arena, Nidal? What's coming up next?
Actually, what's coming up next, it's the post-COVID. Actually, we need to talk with the youth to improve their participation and to let them know that if we want a real change, that real change will come from them and not from another one. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Regine?
I'm just excited to continue being creative and innovative. I think, like us young people, we have to capitalize on what we're good at. And I forgot to mention, but during some of our ECOSOC forum side events, and again, I'm going to reference to Saphira. She notices that when I organize some side events, I try to really like purposely integrate art into it. So we had people still singing online, and we had some dance performances in between all these long-winded speeches. Sometimes, you know, when we bring in high-level speakers, but we try to like balance it, because at the end of the day, we're still young people, you know, and we shouldn't lose our youthful energy. This is something that we can actually give to the world versus trying to of course we have to learn and try to adjust with the rest of society, but we shouldn't lose that spark that we have. And I think like that's something that's to look forward to. Like, how do we keep that spark in as Nidal said, in a post-COVID world?
Yeah, and really, like, why go to the UN and just try to fit in? It's great to see how the UN can be better. So bringing in new ideas. And I know Indigenous did that. There was no opening prayer and a start that centered people. And for the Permanent Forum, it was started with the yoik from the first Permanent Forum chair, and they created that new tradition that still exists. So it's definitely good to come up with your own vision. And next week, we have our 21st Ecological Ethics, Activism, Justice Earth Summit in Hawaii. And Regine, you can join in and we can make sure it's even more dynamic. So that's a great idea. Saphira.
Yeah, for me at the global level, there's a lot that's coming up around gender equality. And for those who are involved with the Generation Equality Forum, there's a conference that's happening in Paris in the summer. And really, there's a lot that young people are doing in that gender equality space, particularly because young people are in many ways leading the culture around gender equality, the transformation of relationships at the local level, and advocacy at the national, international level. So that's one area. And then another area is smaller conversations and spaces where young people are coming together to really think about a complete shift in paradigm. Everything from what's been happening with racial justice around the world to climate justice, peace and security for young people. I mean, the majority of those in conflict and post-conflict areas, in some cases, over 70% of the population are youth, are young people. So there are a number of spaces that are going to be created for smaller consultation to really dig deeply into some of these ideas and think about ways that young people are not only contributing their ideas and their innovation, but also ways in which these deeper questions can be asked about the distribution of resources on the planet in a way that is fair, what a global economic order based on justice could look like, what a sustainable relationship with the environment could be. So I think some of these spaces that allow young people to contribute thought and really have a little bit of leeway to think about a complete shift in the way that global civilization is organized.
Thank you. And Naima.
Yeah, so I'm remembering one panelist who spoke about the power of culture to turn the other into us, and how youth have the capacity to bring about this change and I do feel this responsibility to do so. And he actually warned against radicalizing this generation, but instead investing in their hope, which I thought was a really important point to make. So there's this innate longing of young people to contribute to a better world, and this readiness to be involved. So how does our society support them in that? How might we facilitate more intergenerational, cross-cultural dialogue so that more ideas can be shared? And so I love seeing the ways in which youth, oftentimes inspired by other youth around the world, have taken some of these, the messier problems humanity now faces, like climate justice, and into their own hands with this sense of duty to not only find meaningful and lasting solutions, but to rally others around them, their communities, to do the same, to seek positive change. And I think it speaks a lot to how youth institutions and communities play a role in creating this culture of solidarity and advancing movement at the local level. So I'm excited for more spaces in which we can hear some of the needs of our young people and where we can learn about how best to support these initiatives.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Naima. I know we're running out of time, so I appreciate everyone coming and sharing. And we look forward to building the next decade of action and hopefully having the systemic change and really seeing the ideas and the imagination change the United Nations. But more importantly, as Nidal shared with us, really the post-COVID moment where we can then see how we can build back better, but in beauty and balance, and not just let the normal that existed was not so good for so many to really create the world that we all desire. So thank you so much for joining Cooper Union. And we look forward to the next engagement, be it Generation Equality or the High Level Political Forum or Earth Day next week. So mahalo and thank you for joining Cooper Union.